Ahmed, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm glad the clouds parted today.
Yeah, it is very nice because that could have been really ugly for the rest of the afternoon into the evening. May still be, but we at least got a little bit of break in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah. I'm happy for it.
So you've been at South by all week long. You've been performing shows day after day. Here we are on the final day of South by Southwest. You're about to perform at the Soho House here in just a little bit. How has this South by been for you? Is this your first South by, and what are your overall impressions of the week?
This is not my first South by. I've worked at South by when I was an intern at a magazine a long time ago. So my first South by was 2006. And
you're a veteran at this point then.
Yeah. And Sinkane's first performance at South by was 2012. So it's been a while since I've been here, but yeah, I'm very grateful. It's nice to know 15 years into my career I can still be doing this, and the shows have been great. The band is killing, and it's a very different vibe here in Austin than I remember, but it feels easier than any other South by I think I've ever been on.
When was the last time you were here?
2012.
Oh, the last time you were here was more than a decade ago.
Oh, in Austin, you mean? Yeah. Like period? 2019.
Okay, so pre-COVID, yeah. That was a lifetime ago.
Yeah, exactly. And it definitely didn't look like this back then. And it's been like 5 years, and in 5 years, a lot of new things have popped up. So it's pretty cool to see.
So you're here in part because you've got a new album coming out on April 5th called We Belong. The bits and pieces that I've gotten to listen to have been up to standard and maybe then some. Just how excited are you to finally get to show this album to the people?
I am very proud of this record. It's the best thing I think I've ever done. I think I finally found my voice. It just sounds exactly how I wanted it to sound. And just really happy for myself and everyone involved. It took a village to make the record, and we really created something special.
You have said in previous interviews that you are always refining, you're always tinkering with every bit of new music that you do, but you feel like you did experience that breakthrough with this album. So what was the breakthrough?
I think I was able to finally put together all of my influences and interests in music in a way that felt exactly like myself. If I look back on previous records, I really see myself chipping away in like fine tuning and sanding and doing that kind of thing. And this time I was able to not really chip away. I just kind of figured out how to create my own vocabulary with all of the different ideas that I'm interested in.
So you've been at this for a while now, and in learning about your background, I was trying to think, like, when was the first time I heard a song of yours that I really fell in love with? And the song was How We Be. So I have a radio background, obviously. I have used that as a music bed forever. So first of all, thank you for the instrumental. But the song itself is also really good too. But I was looking at like where you had been up to that point, and it made a lot of sense. I'm like, this is why I discovered him, because you had worked with everyone from Of Montreal, Yesayer, Born Ruffians, and you do hear some of those musical influences within that band. But you admitted that once you really got Sinkane rolling, that it took you some time to get completely comfortable as a frontman once again. You had dabbled a little bit before working as a part of some of those other bands. So what was it that allowed you to get completely comfortable on stage as the guy at the front of this great band? Making
a lot of mistakes and kind of going into throwing myself into the deep end without having much experience as a frontman or as a band leader or as a businessman, really, to be honest. It was really easy to be in Of Montreal and Yesayer and Born Ruffians and all of those bands because it meant that I had no responsibility. I just showed up and played. I got to do all the fun stuff, but I didn't realize how much more of the not fun stuff existed when you're doing your own thing. And I just wasn't ready for that. I didn't really have any experience, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm very grateful for those mistakes because I've learned a lot from them.
Was there a biggest mistake? And if so, what was the lesson?
I think just not having, not being assertive about my voice. That's really it. I think it's just leadership, regardless of it being in music or other kinds of businesses or, whatever it is, sports. You just have to be very assertive and have a lot of conviction behind what you're doing, and trust yourself. And I really didn't have that for a long time, and it led me into a lot of wrong paths, and I'm grateful to have dealt with that, because I feel like I'm on solid ground now.
It's so strange to take that chance because you do have to take those initial steps, of course, but then imposter syndrome starts to set in. You wonder, like, does anybody actually get it? But you do it enough over time, then gradually you look around and you realize that maybe if you haven't necessarily mastered something, you've at least figured it out enough to really be able to fight for yourself in certain battles.
Yeah, exactly. I think the imposter syndrome thing in particular, it's a big deal. But, I feel bad for anyone who hasn't made any mistakes, because that's really when the growth happens,
It's such a boring life if you've never made those mistakes. I pity those people too. Pity's not a great emotion to feel necessarily, but it's like, gosh, you have really not done a whole lot with your life. You just stayed on the straight and narrow. You've kept things very conservative, and this world is all about experiencing awe. It's easy to experience as a kid, right? I've got a 9 and 7-year-old. You're married. Do you have kids at home?
We don't have kids yet, but we are. That's the next step, I think.
Okay, good luck with that. So at 9 and 7, I see them experiencing less awe than they did several years ago because the world is more comfortable to them. So even something as simple as like pressing a button to open an automatic door, let's say, like they used to fight one another for that. Now I see them just disinterested and waiting for me to hold the door for them because I'm a nice dad. But we need to experience awe as adults as well, but it becomes much more difficult, especially if we remain in those comfort zones. So to talk to somebody else who understands that, the value of mistakes, and who is seeking out those new experiences, it's really cool to get to talk to you, one, but it's cool to see that manifest also with the music that you've made over the years too.
Yeah. I feel like I can understand where I was in the present moment on every album that I've made, And
interesting. Even listening back now, you're like, this is exactly where I was.
Exactly. And I think I can hear the problem solving, not knowing how to get a sound that I liked, and just experimenting and with being in my own head and not having any of the tools really to know how to get a certain sound or create a style or a musical trope, In this album, I went back to school. I got a master's in music composition, and it really opened my mind up to how to create music in a way that was very foreign to me for a long time. And I think through that, I was really, really able to find my voice.
Technically speaking, how did it change how you go about creating music?
Well, when you study music, you start to understand the science of music. Nothing is really happenstance. There are magical moments that exist in music. When you do them on the fly, and that's like a very beautiful thing that we all as musicians like strive to achieve. But when you're creating music, when you're writing and composing, there's a language and there's a vocabulary, to literally doing anything. You can what you end up doing in music school is you analyze a lot of music, and you see like, oh, this is what Bach is doing, and this is how he created this, and what we know as this kind of formula for the music, understanding the theory. And once you understand that, you can go back to the music that you love or songs that you love and see what they're doing. Like David Bowie wasn't just joking around, Miles Davis, all these people that I'm inspired by, Sly Stone, all of them, they knew the science of music. They knew the understanding. Quincy Jones is a perfect example too. And you can go back and understand that and be able to have this conversation with these people by saying, oh, I see what you did there. Now, what can I do? What would that look like if I did that? Which is very different from before, where I would listen to something and just rip it off, just straight up like, oh, well, I'm just going to replay this thing, and then maybe I can reverse psychology or reverse engineer to understand how this is happening. But it was still a very, very foreign concept. But now it's like I can really break it down to a science of what's going on.
So I'm a sucker for a good falsetto. I guess I should preface this by asking, are you providing the falsetto in Sinkane? Because there are a number of different singers on a given song, but you're doing the falsetto?
Pretty much the whole time is my falsetto. I think the song Invisible Distance and Everything is Everything with True Osborne singing. True provides the falsetto in Everything Is Everything, but we share it on Invisible Distance. But 99% of the time, it's me.
So whether you're talking about Born Ruffians, maybe the biggest reason why I love those guys, or Gary Clark Jr., or you, Ahmed, it takes something special to get that falsetto right. Is that something that you struggled with early in your time as a frontman, and what allowed you to get there? Was there a song or a moment where you had finally put enough hours in to where you hit it?
I think anyone who has a falsetto, like a male falsetto, might agree when I say the falsetto feels very comfortable to sing in. It's deceiving though, because it's really, it's like driving a car at like 120 miles an hour. It's really easy. If you just move one bit this way, you're off the rails, you know? But it's so satisfying, it's for me in particular, to sing in my falsetto. It just my body resonates in a way that it feels really good. And I think what really made me realize that I could do it was on Mean Love, on the album Mean Love, especially the song Mean Love, because that's sang mostly in my falsetto.
Yeah, you're right that it is a delicate balance, because I'm an amateur falsetto in the car with my family. Even if it's not a song that has falsetto, I go a little bit higher pitch just to try and hear how it sounds. And I get told by my family that it sounds like screeching cats. So congratulations on achieving that sort of enlightenment.
Yeah. I mean, it's polarizing. You know, there's a lot of people who tell me that they don't like it, and there's a lot of people who tell me they do like it. But I mean, the important thing is I like it. So,
well, when you can strike a chord similar to like a Marvin Gaye or a Curtis Mayfield or a Stevie Wonder, which I think you are in that category now, then not to put too much pressure on you with the performance tonight, but I think it does get a little bit easier, and you also recognize that you can't please everybody too.
Exactly. It's important you just please yourself, really.
So you went to undergrad at Ohio State, correct?
Yes, I did. Yep.
I don't know how big of a sports fan you are. Are you a big football fan?
I am a very big sports fan. My main is basketball, but being an Ohio State Buckeye, I very much followed college football.
Yeah, I talked to Evan Turner last week. That was a pretty big thrill.
Wow, that's amazing.
He's a cool freaking dude.
That's amazing. Yeah, I started, my freshman year was when Maurice Claret was playing. And
yeah, you guys got a national championship early in your time at Ohio State, right?
First year, yeah. That was one of the most surreal experiences I think I've ever experienced. Not because of the win, but because of the celebratory riots that existed. You know, it really showcased the energy of Ohio State fans and Ohio State students. Is pretty gnarly.
Scarier scene, war-torn Sudan, which you have seen. You would go there regularly as a kid with your family who have roots there during summer times, or post Ohio State winning a national championship, or maybe even them just beating Michigan in the shoe on a given year. Oh,
I mean, those are two very different experiences. I don't know how easy it would be for me to compare or contrast the two, but I will say the Ohio State-Michigan game my freshman year, after we won in the shoe, seeing people flip over cars and throw lit mattresses into the middle of the street was a pretty surreal experience. You know, after we won, that was pretty wild.
Yeah, I watch Americans do that in celebration or disgust for their sports teams, and it's like these acts that are being carried out other places in an effort to try and overthrow repressive regimes, of course, or for some other political reasons. It's like, man, we are spoiled here if this is how we take to the streets in that regard.
Yeah. It almost felt like going to an Eagles game or something. You know, it was pretty intense. As volatile as losing, you know, like a very angry person losing. But, you know, I don't know. Ohio State games were so much fun to go to. You know, going to a game at the shoe was really something special. I mean, it's so massive, and like the communal energy there was really, really great.
You must have been there when Texas and Vince Young went in there and won that game.
I remember that day very vividly.
Yeah, there were a lot of Longhorn fans who disagree with you on how much fun it is going to the Horseshoe. Apparently, Ohio State fans were not taking too kindly to the Longhorns that day.
Well, what was interesting about that game in particular, it was, you know, that was back when the Big Ten was the Big Ten. Yeah. You know, it wasn't, we didn't open it up. There was no one in anyone that we saw outside of the Big Ten was only at a bowl game, you know? So, and anytime we had anything to do outside of the Midwest was when we played the Fiesta Bowl, because for some reason we played the Fiesta Bowl every year for like 6 years straight or something.
Yeah, y'all were too good to play in the Rose Bowl a lot of years.
It was crazy. So that was a really special game for Ohio State fans, because it was the first time we had this like major market team come to Ohio. You know, we wouldn't ever. You know, I think the only other team that we had seen before that was Miami, you know, in the national championship game. So, and that was a national championship game. So it was really interesting to see that, and it was like kind of fresh energy, and the UT fans that came almost felt like aliens. It was like, oh, whoa, you guys are who is this crop of sports fan that we are not used to at all? You know, yeah. It's pretty weird.
Are you a fan of the direction that college football is headed and college sports in general, with NIL, with the expansion of the playoff, and some of the other things that's going to entail?
I do like the college postseason. I think that's the structure of that is much more organized, I feel like, and not
and forgiving too. By the way, you can lose a game now and you'll still be okay in terms of trying to pursue.
You don't have to go undefeated the whole season and to even be considered for anything. The pressure is less. The whole NIL thing, I think, is very interesting, and I mean, it was bound to happen. You know, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with it, because I don't know what kind of incentive really exists to go pro for a majority of these players anymore. But like at the same time, there's such a small percentage of players that actually do go pro, so it really gives an opportunity for a good crop of people that really need it. You know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
What's your favorite Ohio State basketball memory?
Oh man, I don't really know. I mean, I think the one Ohio State basketball season that I really paid attention to is when Greg Oden was playing, and I didn't really follow it that much. I'm much more of a Cavs fan, much more like a pro NBA sports fan. But
speaking of franchises that burn jerseys when their star goes from one place to another,
yeah, well, I definitely didn't agree with people when that happened. I was a little bummed out, but you know, LeBron James has single-handedly, not single-handedly. I think Michael Jordan crawled so LeBron could walk as far as basketball marketing is concerned, but he's really taken the business of basketball and turned it into something else, and that was a turning point in that, you know, in the history of basketball. And I don't think he should have done it, but you know, whatever.
There's an interesting performative element to LeBron that a lot of people don't like. I just watch as an innocent bystander. I don't really care that much at this point, but I bring that up because David Bowie is one of your favorite artists. Obviously a performative element there. Of Montreal, also very much performance art too. What was the most performative thing that you did as a member of the traveling band with Of Montreal for a couple of years?
So we dressed up, and once I got really comfortable dressing up, I really kind of took a nod to George Clinton and tried to like dress exactly like him. I had feather boas and long blonde wig and these really big sunglasses and just this wonderful thing. And I would do this thing in between the show and the encore where I'd come out and get the crowd to chant something. And it was this like stupid kind of like Animal House chant that my friends and I would do at Ohio State, where we'd say, "What do we want?" And we'd have people say, "Pizza." "When do we want it?" "Pizza." So it was just back and forth, and I'd have a crowd of 2,000, 3,000 people doing this pizza chant, you know, as an ode to my friends, and it was a lot of fun.
I love the P-Funk nod. I had the pleasure of talking to Bootsy Collins the other day. That was surreal.
Yeah, we were about to run into him. We played at the Pace stage, and he was playing right afterwards, but I had to leave, and I was really bummed out. I mean, that guy's an idol.
Have you run into Bootsy or George before?
I run into George a few times. We played Glastonbury Festival together and another festival in Taos, New Mexico. And I've been to his studio in Tallahassee, Florida, where he has the mothership in the middle of his studio. And had the pleasure of taking a picture with the mothership. It was really nice.
In the middle of the studio.
In the middle of the live room, yeah.
Damn, that is wild. All right, last thing now, because as I said, We Belong is coming out April 5th. What do you hope people take away from this? I know you said that it's a tribute to Black music, Black culture, Black people, and it's also a culmination of all these lessons that you've learned over time. What do you hope people walk away from after they've listened to this album, hopefully about 30,000 times?
I hope that they just walk away happy and enjoy the music, you know. I hope that they can understand that it's all about community, you know. One of my favorite things about Black culture and Black music is it's all about community. It's all about the conversation between all of us. And this is me starting the conversation with my fans or with these new people that decide to give Sinkane a shot, you know, and I'd love to hear what they have to say.
Well, I think what they have to say is going to be very positive. And thank you so much for the time today, man. It's been a real pleasure.